Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Yes.
Not for too long.
How are you?
Good evening. Welcome. We're going to go ahead and get started. Good evening and welcome to the Thursday, March 21st regular meeting of the school committee. We have just returned from an executive session and we are ready to convene for our regularly scheduled meeting. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and those who are able that would like to stand as we say the Pledge of Allegiance will do so now. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we have a pretty good agenda here. We will have an opportunity for public comment after we have our recognition. So if there are those who did not see it on our agenda, we are moving it up out of order because it was inadvertently not placed there. But let's start with our recognitions. And do you want to go ahead and
I will do
present
that. So our first recognition tonight is Mr. Charles Rockwood. He is an English Language Arts and Social Studies teacher at the middle school. I am not going to say much about him because he has brought with him Mr. Larney, John P. Larney, who is the state quartermaster for the Veterans of Foreign War, and I'm going to ask him to come on up and bring Mr. Rockwood with you. And you can talk a little bit about the award. If you guys want to just sit right over there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Hello,
Hi.
you're welcome.
how are you?
You want us to sit?
Sure, please.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I have to be official. Going to do a very quick introduction on the VFW. Anyone who's a veteran can join the AMVETS. Anyone who served during certain periods of time can join the American Legion. To be a member of the VFW, you have to have been stationed in a combat zone. And so, a little distinction there. Okay. Chuck, by the way, 4 years in the Coast Guard?
8.
8.
I'm trying to buy back 4.
The VFW runs several programs on patriotism, and we have a middle school program which Hopkinton seems to win consistently because of Chuck. That program, by the way, the state awards the first place winner $500. If they go on and win the national competition, they get $5,000. We also have a high school program, and at the state level, we do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1,000 plus another 500 for the rest of the children. If the high school person wins the national competition out of the 54 departments, the basic scholarship is $30,000. So it's some serious money. So about 1999, the VFW decided to recognize 3 teachers per year, 1 K through 5, 1 middle school, and 1 high school. And we're here tonight to recognize Chuck. He was out of 54 contestants in the state of Massachusetts, he came out number 1. So,
Thank you. It's really because of our students. It's an honor to serve them.
so we have a plaque for him. Charles Rockwood, who I call Chuck, in recognition for his outstanding commitment to teaching Americanism and patriotism to the students, Hopkinton Middle School, Hopkinton, Mass., presented by the Department of Massachusetts, and we actually presented it to him on January 27th at a dinner where we recognized the students that had won scholarships. But we'll do a photo op in a minute.
All right.
And that's more than enough to take your wife out to dinner.
All right. Appreciate that.
And I have another check there for the school for $250 for one of his special projects.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
right.
and thank you for coming out. Don't go yet.
Oh. Okay. This is my mother, Marion Rockwood.
Oh, fabulous.
Dr. Kavanaugh.
hold the flag.
Oh, I am? Hold on a second. Thank you. Thank you very much.
This is fabulous.
Tomorrow's Fun Fact Friday, everybody.
Tune in.
It's a great one, too. Thank you, John.
Thank you. I've already listened to.
So the Patriots pen, just real quick.
Please.
At the we do the Voice of Democracy here at the high school, and over at the middle school, it's called the Patriots Pen. It's an essay contest, and there's always a patriotic theme annually. Well, how it started here in Hopkinton is we had a hall monitor, a retired educator, Dave Laquadera. Some of you may know Dave Laquadera from town. And he retired as, he was a full-time middle school teacher. When he retired, he was a hall monitor over at the middle school years ago. And he introduced the Patriots Pen to me. He said, we're looking for someone in the school. I was, full-time English teacher at the time, now I'm social studies in English. And he said, we're looking for someone to spearhead the Patriots Pen essay writing contest at HMS. So I took the lead with that, and for years now, as John mentioned, we've had winners on the state level, and the students that have written the Patriots Pen have gone on and written the Voice of Democracy essays here at the high school as well. Again, thank you very much.
So thank you. I just want to add, thank you on behalf of all of the entire district, the students, the teachers, everybody, that you bring distinction to our district, but you've touched so many kids. I know years ago you had my daughter who's now in college, and she still talks about you and having run into you in Greece and just all of the amazing things that you've done with our kids. So this is, congratulations, and really, thank you for all you do.
Thank you for your service to the country, and thank you for what you do for our district.
Appreciate it.
We're honored.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night. I'll just show you Mr. Rockwood doing his Fun Fact Friday.
That's a
Here's
great
the other
photo
side
right there,
there.
Mr. Rockwood.
I don't think he's paying attention, is he? Okay, so our second special recognition tonight is Mr. Ed Flannery from the Hopkins School, and I will ask Mrs. Bolello and her students to come on up and talk a little bit about Mr. Flannery.
Of course, you need to take the stand in the corner, please.
Sure.
Right.
Oh, you want me in front?
Oh, yeah.
You can stand, absolutely.
I don't want to block these guys.
Yeah, block
Why don't
me,
you come right
block
over
me.
here so that the audience can
Okay.
see. Excellent. All right, my friends, you want to take it away?
Good evening, Hopkinton School Committee. Thank you so much for allowing us to come here tonight and honor Mr. Flannery, our retiring head custodian. We are student representatives from the Hawk Squad, the Hopkins Community Service Club. We dedicate our Tuesday afternoons to planning service projects with Mrs. Bolello and Miss Babson that will benefit our community, school, town, and world. Recently, we honored Mr. Flannery by planning a surprise whole school meeting at Hopkins. It is pretty hard for a school of over 550 4th and 5th grade students to keep a secret from the head custodian, but we pulled it off. We'd like to share a little poem we read at the whole school meeting in honor of Mr. Flannery.
Ode to our retiring custodian, mops and brooms and feather dusters are used by this cleaning buster. He empties our trash and recycles each night. He makes our hallways sparkle and bright. Of papers placed in the recycling bin, think of our custodian and give a grin. He's kept this building clean for you. Without a custodian, what will we do? Mr. Flannery. We never met a custodian quite like you. For all our messes you undo, just when stuff looks the worst, you're the one who gets there first. You pick up litter, you pick up goo, and if there's any accidents, you deal with that too. We are so very grateful for all that you do.
It was great to honor him as a school, but we are pleased to be able to be here to thank him publicly. Mr. Flannery has been a critical part of Hopkins School for its entire history, 20 years. He's also helped out as a custodian in other buildings and even served as a high school football coach. He has been an important presence in our district for a long time now. Mr. Flannery has been the best janitor ever. He deserves the biggest thank you in the world. Every day he came to Hopkins School to pick up the messes we made and to fix things that we broke. It is not an easy job to be a one-man cleaning show with over 600 people making messes each day, so thank you.
Some of you may know that Mrs. Bolello has a favorite short story she likes to share at Hopkins, the story of the starfish. It goes like this. Once upon a time, there was an old man who used to go to the ocean to do his writing. He had a habit of walking on the beach before he began his work. One day, as he was walking along the shore, he looked down the beach and saw a human figure moving like a dancer. As he got closer, he noticed that the figure was that of a girl, and that what she was doing was not dancing at all. The young woman was reaching down to the shore, picking up small objects and throwing them into the ocean.
The old man came closer still and called out, "Good morning. May I ask what it is that you are doing?" The girl paused, looked up, and replied, "Throwing starfish into the ocean." "I must ask, then, why are you throwing starfish into the ocean?" asked the somewhat startled old man. To this the girl replied, "The sun is up and the tide is going out. If I don't throw 'em in, they'll die." Upon hearing this, the old man commented, "But young lady, do you not realize that there are miles and miles of beach, and there are starfish along every mile? You can't possibly make a difference."
At this, the girl began, picked up yet starfish and threw it into the ocean. As it met the water, she said, "It made a difference for that one." Mr. Flannery, thank you so much for making a difference in the lives of students here in Hopkinton for all these years. Hopkins will miss you very much, but we wish you well on your future journey. Enjoy your retirement.
I think the students have said it all. We've been really blessed to have you at Hopkins for so long. It's a special building, and you were a special part of it, and we will miss you. We know it was not an easy job, and none of us really helped make it an easy job, but you came to work with a smile, and you really were an important part of our community and always will be. So thank you for your service.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Mr. Flannery, I have your certificate of achievement.
Oh, wait. You know, it started out as a job, but it ended up as an adventure. And I enjoyed coming to work every day.
Yeah.
Had a laugh. My theory was we had to laugh every day, find something to laugh about.
How could you not with these wonderful children?
And sometimes I was laughing at them. Laughing with them, you know.
So, ladies and gentlemen, from September 8th, 1988 to February 28th, 2019, Mr. Flannery was with us here in the Hopkinton Public Schools.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, boss.
Thanks so much. We did our photo op
Yes.
before, so we
Oh, okay,
let you
wonderful.
move along.
Okay,
Well,
very
this
good.
is
Thank you.
wonderful. Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
so much
coming
for
in,
your
for all of your years of service. And thank you to all the students for coming in.
Can I just really fast? I have a secret detective in Hopkins who did a little detective work for me, and she came back with. See, I just gave the gender away of this little detective. Sorry, that was unintentional. She asked a couple of folks if they could give me a quote or a statement or something about you that I could say tonight, because I wasn't sure how this was going to go. I didn't know we were going to have the fantastic Hawk Squad here to speak about you. So I just wanted to share a couple of the ones that stuck out the most. One of my favorites, he helped me get my shoe from the wall. So that was a good one. He helped me reach my locker where my homework was. He knows all the little secret passageways in the school. Love that one. He fixes things in the classroom whenever they need to be fixed. He helped me find my gloves. He showed me how to get to the library. There was this long list of always he helped me, he helped me, he helped me. So you're going to be missed. Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our last recognition, but certainly not the least of the evening, I'm asking Kristen Murphy to come on up with her high school science fair students. And I will let Kristen just lead the way.
Hello. You guys can sit if you want to.
We're gonna try and do a stadium seating here. I don't know if it's gonna work. Just do that. We can pull them out. It's fine. Okay, well, thank you for having us. We really appreciate it. I'm Kristen Murphy. I'm a 9th grade chemistry teacher at the high school, and I'm the science fair director. And these are a few of our students that just competed at the regional fair at WPI and are headed to the state fair at MIT in May. So we're really thrilled to be here today, and we really appreciate the support and enthusiasm in town for the science fair. They're going to have a chance to tell you a little bit about their projects, but just to kind of give you the bigger picture this year, we held our school fair for the 31st year, which is one of the longest programs in the state, and we were really excited that this year we had more students than ever participate. We had almost 97 students at the school fair, over 50 projects, and so many students who are new to the experience that were doing a project for the first time. So I think we're doing a better job every year grabbing more students and a wider range of students who are getting to experience the real scientific method and study something they love. And I don't know if anyone was able to stop by the day of the fair, but it's my favorite day of the entire year, and it's the most inspiring day as a teacher to see these students choose these topics that mean so much to them or their families or their communities and spend so much time investigating them. And I think it's such a testament to what's happening in this town. Everything from the amazing teaching happening K through 8 that's getting them ready to be these great scientists, to the support from the parents who are encouraging them and telling them we believe in you and helping them figure out a topic, and then most of all to our students who, with all the activities they're doing in high school and all the demands of classes, are finding time to pursue their passions, and as you'll hear, tackle something that really makes a difference. Every project, and that was the real big theme this year, seems to be something that will make a difference in the world, and what more could we look forward to our future? It's such an inspiring day, and I couldn't be more proud of these students who are some of our top performers, but even the simplest project, I think that student gets so much out of the experience. So we really couldn't do it without the financial and scheduling support of the school committee and the administration and the HBTA, who's fundamental in our funding every year. So thank you so much for having us here. I'm gonna have every student go through and just tell you their names and their project titles. And then we have 3 that were some of our top performers that will give you a little snippet and summary of the project. Thank you. So, Archie, why don't you guys start?
Yeah, so my name is Archita. I'm Tanisha. We did a group project, and our project is calling 911 when detecting an irregular heart rate.
My name is Priya Pardeen, and my project was called Spill the Tea Sis, Can Green Tea Prevent and Cure Cancer?
Yeah, I'm Rohan Minocha. My project was Systems and Methods for Automated Programmable Dispensing of Medication.
Tell a little bit about your project.
My project is an automatic pill dispensing device, and its purpose is to prevent unintentional injury and unintentional death due to misuse of prescription medications. And it does that through a hardware and software solution. So there's a hardware or a pill dispenser which automatically dispenses medication, and that works with 2 different software apps. And both the hardware and the software help to enforce a strict medication schedule, so a person can only take their medication in the correct quantity, in the correct manner, and at the correct time.
Rohan, could you tell the committee where you came up with the idea, what your impetus was?
So I originally came up with the idea from looking at my grandmother. So she's almost 80 years old. She has difficulty remembering whether she's taking her medication or she's taking it in the safe prescribed way. So originally, for this project, I looked for a device first for her. I couldn't find one, so I set out to build my own device, which almost seeks to replace your normal orange pill bottles in which most medication comes in these days.
And Rohan was one of the top 10 projects at the regional fair. So we're really excited to see how he does it at states. And there's a lot of interest always from the judges about patenting his project. And so he and his brother are in the works, I think, on that. So stay tuned. There's lots more to come.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Elise, you guys want to go?
I'm Elisa. I'm Alana. Our project is removing gluten from fryer oil because 4 in 100 people have some sort of gluten sensitivity. So we wanted to figure out a way to make it safe for them to eat fried food in restaurants by filtering or straining out the gluten from the oil. So we actually made a prototype fryer basket that would allow for restaurants to fry gluten-free food in gluten-contaminated oil, and our procedure was a very simple and practical way for restaurants to do so.
And they were 5th place at the regional fair, so out of 130 projects, so very exciting. They were 1 away from the international fair, so maybe next year, but as they said, a simple idea that was done really, really well, which is awesome to see in a science fair, and they did a great job.
Did it actually work? Because I have celiac and I would buy that.
It did work. We were successful.
That's super impressive.
So they've partnered with one of the big gluten-free testers, the gluten-free watchdog. I also have celiac, so I hear you. So they're going to be publishing their results through some of these websites. So the celiac community is very excited about this. Yes.
Hi everyone, my name is Simran Kaur and my project is The Mystery Behind Aerial Warfare. In this project, I made a model of an aircraft that's invisible to light by using different paints, coatings, materials, and fibers that could make the aircraft invisible to light.
That's interesting. All of these are so interesting.
I'm curious to know about the connection with green tea and cancer. What did you find in your research?
So I tested if the polyphenols in green tea, which are the catechins in green tea, like what green tea is made of, have an effect on a tumor. So I tested, so I exposed a living model, and my living model was planaria, and I exposed it to a carcinogen. And the carcinogen I used was Roundup, which is something everyone has in their garage. It's a common herbicide. And I basically established that in high dosages, Roundup does indeed cause cancer, but the polyphenols in green tea can modulate the cancer and kill the cancerous tumors in the living model.
That's great. I was so impressed with all of the projects, but as I was coming into the high school on the day of the fair, one of the judges was exiting, and somebody who does not have a high school, is not the parent of a high schooler, and she was so impressed with all of the projects and the level of what goes on here, and was all excited as I was on my way. And so I came in and I was really excited. And having seen your projects, it just blows my mind that you've come up with these ideas, really practical things that are helpful in the world. And it's amazing to imagine where you're going if you're doing this in high school, what you're going to be doing in 10 years. So congratulations to all of you, and I look forward to hearing more about you in the future.
Yeah, every project sounds so exciting. I'm interested about this invisible, seems like.
Sounds cool.
Airplane, is it? Aircraft? What?
Yeah, so my project is based on stealth technology, which is being used in the Air Force nowadays, and how to maintain that technology for the Air Force to use.
Wow. Amazing.
So I'd like to tell you guys, I wasn't able to go, but my husband went, and he definitely doesn't go easy when he is in the role of judge. He likes to grill folks and try to see how much they really. He came home and he said there were some kids. He's like, I would hire them. He's an engineer. He's like, we would hire them on the spot. Like, there was that much of a. You guys spoke at such a high level. You had such a deep understanding of what you were talking about that he was so impressed. So a huge compliment to all of you on just a fantastic job, because it really shows how passionate you are about what you came up with and what you were able to create. And good job. Good job, everybody.
And thank you, Ms. Murphy. You know, you've been in the background, it seems like, but we know how much you do and your team does.
Thank you. Yes, we have a great group of mentors at the high school, so thank you. And we really appreciate your support.
Great job, guys.
Great
and
job.
good
Thank
luck.
you, guys. Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Have a good night,
You guys can
everybody.
go home and
Good
study
luck.
next round. That's fantastic. So at this point, I'm going to offer an opportunity. If there's anybody here that would like to come up to speak and make a public comment, you can do so now. If you want to come up, and you can take a seat and state your name just for the record. And yes, please, welcome. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Robin Malone. I sent an email to the school committee on Wednesday, and I just wanted to put a face with a name. My husband and I have two boys who have special needs and are receiving special education services here in town. And I just wanted to say we moved here 5 years ago, and they have made tremendous progress in those 5 years, and we couldn't be more thrilled with the school district and the education that they're getting. And I really just wanted to express that and express how grateful I am for this town and for the excellent education system that you guys have in place, and that especially for us, the special education. And I think it's a tremendous program, and I think it speaks a lot to the head of the special education, which is the Director of Student Services. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming and sharing such positive. A lot of times, people don't want to come out at night and speak in front of TV, and it really is much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
All right, we do not have anyone from Student Council here right now, is that correct? Yes. All right, so then,
Do you want to move the bus?
yeah, why don't we take the bus parking lot report out of order? And slide, so do we want to have them?
And I invite,
Is
Chief
Slayman?
I think Chief Slayman is supposed to come
All right,
as
so
well,
let's hold
though.
off. Let's
Yeah,
wait.
maybe we
Sorry,
should wait.
did not realize, yep.
If you want to text him and say, get going?
When he's here, we will take him, but do you want to go ahead into the financial report while we're,
I'll go right into the financial report. So what you have before you is the financial report through March 12th. And as you can see from the cover page, right now we are still running a positive variance of 94,000. Some of the things that I will caution going forward, each month this is kind of a look and a projection as to where we are. Some of the things that I have adjusted for this were increasing the projection for substitutes at the elementary level. That is something going forward that it looks as though we'll have an overrun, and that is reflected in here. What is not reflected in here, and I think will change this number going forward, are potential for the legal costs to change moving forward. So I see that as decreasing what we have right now as a positive variance, because I do think that that's something that will change in the future. So are there any questions? You can see from the payroll, right now we're running a positive variance of 69,000 and the expense accounts at 25,000, and the details of all the changes are on the next following pages. This is all great news. Thank you.
it's great. Thank you.
Even with all those positions added, yeah.
Yeah, that's always.
3 more months. Right? Thank you.
A few more months. All right, so Dr. Kavanaugh, then, if you'd like to go.
Okay, sure. So I'll give you my superintendent's report. I start off with just some goings-on. On Saturday, March 9th, I think more than 30 people convened in this room to do the focus groups for our strategic planning. I want to say thank you to Hef, who provided breakfast for us on that day. I've been in contact with Cindy Boney, who is our DESE consultant, and she's currently still compiling all of the information that she took on that day. So I'm anticipating that you'll have that for me by no later than Monday for sure, if not late tomorrow afternoon. I have a live link there on strategic planning, and we can just sort of take a look quickly to show you that we're pretty much on target in terms of timeline. So if we scroll down to March 21st, which is where we are today, I am slated to present an update to the school committee on the strategic planning work, if there is any, and really I can just tell you about the event of March 9th. I was really pleased with how many people came out, and the focus groups I thought were, a lot of people were very much invested in them and had a lot to say, and I think that we actually gathered, I think, a lot of data. So I'm interested to see what it is that Cindy puts together for us.
I just want to say I thought it was an excellent day. I really was appreciative of the quality of the consultant that you were able to find. I thought you did a great job. I think your preparation was really instrumental in making that day run well. And people came, they had done their reading, their assigned readings ahead of time. There was really rich discussion. So hopefully we got some good output, because it seemed like there was a lot being shared and brainstormed and so forth. It was fun.
A lot of good energy.
Yes. The same weekend, the high school had their spring play, Radium Girls, and I don't know if anyone got out to see that, but it's a historical fiction piece, and it was really well done. It's one of those plays that kind of stays with you because of the tie to history, that sort of thing that lingers in your mind for days afterward. So, kudos to Ms. Rosenvinger and her students. It was a great production. What you see here are the kids who were just before you. These are the students who were competing at WPI at the Regional Science Fair. I'm sure some of those kids will look very familiar to you.
Pictures.
We had STEAM night at the Elmwood School, so here are just some pictures that I took while I was zipping around. The way they work this is that you sort of have this passport, so you go to a science, a technology, and engineering, and art, and a mathematics session, so you can see families just having a wonderful time. I don't know, Mrs. Carver, what you think about percentage, but about 95%, I think, of your second graders came out. Do you think?
I think they said all but 40 students were in attendance.
Wow. It's amazing.
Maybe 10 of them were in the driveway.
I will say that parking was a little challenging at the Elmwood School on that night.
It was the only thing that I heard from anybody that was a negative, was that the parking was extremely challenging. We typically park on the field, and we didn't have access to it because of the snow.
I mean, I think another amazing thing about STEAM Night at Elmwood is it's not sort of limited to Elmwood. I mean, you'll see teachers from the high school, you'll see tons of high school kids running around and parents, and it's really just an amazing night. How many people have to come together to put, I mean, I don't know how many different stations you had, but, my guess is there could have been like 30 of them.
I would say that's probably about right.
Yeah. We had 2 community reading days, and interestingly enough, both at Hopkins and Elmwood. We had the same book chosen, The Day You Begin, and I was actually thrilled to see this because, first of all, I love Jacqueline Woodson, but I was also very happy to see that the text was chosen in support of our diversity and inclusivity work that we've been doing all year.
It's a great book.
It was.
That's a really fun event.
A couple of other things. So Carla Crisafulli, who is the math subject matter leader here at the high school, has established a partnership with Mass Bay Community College, and so students here at the high school will be able to take tuition-free dual enrollment computer science scripting courses. So that's brand spanking new. It's not going to cost any student any money at all, but they will be able to earn college credits while enrolled in high school. So that's exciting. And the second thing, in terms of curriculum, is that we have our Seal of Biliteracy almost up and running, and I want to thank Jill Kimball, Marilyn Miracle, Yumina for your work in that, Jen for your work in that. But it is an amazing achievement to have our kids recognized because they are able to speak 2 languages fluently and to get that seal on their diploma when they leave high school. So kudos to everyone who's been involved in that. This one is the middle school. This team right here is our New England champion STEM research and skills students right here. So, Doug Scott is always wonderful about tweeting that information out, but just a little shout out to those kids who have done very well. And just a couple of loose ends. I have just this revision to the page 2 that we had talked about last time. After our last meeting, I had asked Georgette to put this out and to sort of solicit any information from people about dates that we did not have on this particular calendar. So you can see that the items on this calendar that are in blue font, All Saints' Day, Feast of Immaculate Conception, Three Kings, Orthodox, Christmas, and the Feast of the Ascension, are those that people suggested adding. And so I will have Georgette post this again tomorrow morning, and if it stays up for the next couple weeks, we will probably just put it to a vote next time we are together on April 4th, I believe.
I don't see blue font. Mine is
Yeah,
not
when I
blue.
say
Oh,
blue.
Okay, my eyes are going.
That's all right.
They're aging.
Nope. I totally get it. And the last thing about the Hopkinton High School edition, this has been sort of a part of this like urban lore problem that I think that we've had for a very long time. So I can recall people saying to me that when this school was built, there are footings somewhere, they're all ready, you can actually build an addition on it. And then Tim Person, who is the Director of Building and Grounds, had brought me some drawings, and his drawings sort of indicated that that addition had already been built. But if you're standing behind the high school, you'll see that there are two wings that project out, one shorter than the other. What we learned today, we met with Chuck Joseph, and we were able to also find the appropriate drawings. And what we learned today is that in the process of building the high school in 1999, the enrollment here was so rapidly growing that they actually did build on one of the additions, but the second addition has not yet been built, and it would accommodate 6 classrooms. Yes, which is pretty amazing, I think. The two of them were sort of guessing that you might be somewhere around $500 per square foot, which might come out to about, $750,000 for each one of those classrooms. So that's kind of, and I don't even want to sort of commit to that number, but that's the, sort of sitting by the table, armchair kind of numbers that we were throwing around today. According to Chuck and according to all of the drawings, the systems, so any of the plumbing, the HVAC, all of that stuff was originally designed to be able to accommodate those 6 new classrooms. So really, when we thought about what would be the most effective way to do that, you could technically build the outside of that addition while kids were in class, and then in the period between, June 15th and, August 25th, you'd have to take a stairwell and push it out to the end of that corridor and extend a corridor. So that would be, I think, a significant amount of construction as opposed to just sort of building walls. So that's something that I think we should probably think about as a district, and it's something that I also believe would not be MSBA reimbursed, so, that's something that the town should just get, some, sort of take a look at how much we think that that would actually cost. We can go back to the original architects and then, think about putting that out to bid in subsequent years. So at least we have something definitive now. We know that there is actually a place that you can build on 6 classrooms.
So in the back, there's the 6/6 extension and then the 4/4 classroom? And then, so
Yes.
where would these additional 6 classrooms go?
It would be attached to the 4/4.
Okay.
But it would be 3 levels. So
Okay.
there would be 2, 2, and 2.
So that does not interfere with the bus parking lot
It
at
does
all?
not interfere with the bus parking lot, no. I mean, right now, there's sort of patio built right there.
And did you say each classroom, I know you said it's a rough number, did you say 750,000 per classroom?
Yes, but I would
Yeah.
not want to go on record with that number. That's just 3 people sitting in a room saying, what do you think?
Sure. And in terms of need, you think this is something that could accommodate growth up to a certain point? Was that also part of the conversation?
So Mrs. Rothermick and I got information from the 3 high school administrators and this week, and what we have learned is that there are 68 available classrooms in the high school. At this point, the first period, period 1, but it's rotating obviously, is the period during which most classrooms are filled, and they are filled to 65. So 65 out of the 68 classrooms are filled to capacity at that point in time. I think what is a little bit interesting is it's fine when that falls in the first sort of period of the day, because you can use the cafeteria area if you want to put kids into study halls. But when that block would move to the lunch period, you can't use the cafeteria. So the 3 available classrooms would have to house all of the students who are in the building at that point, or, kids can leave because we have, for seniors, that open campus.
So
Did I get that all right?
Mm-hmm. The 3 additional classrooms then hold, they're probably being used then for study halls when it's not that first period, is that? If
Right.
the study hall can't be going on in the cafeteria, those 3 have to
During
be
lunch.
used during lunch.
Yeah.
And is that not adequate right now, or is that close to being not adequate?
No, I think they're okay now.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, basically, and that was the most full. When you got down to 7th period, I believe the space usage was around 59 of the 68. So 65 of the 68 was the highest use. And, of course, every period is different based on scheduling.
But you need a PhD to understand the schedule in high school, I think.
I agree, but 65 of the 68 was the highest use. So there's flexibility. If you talk about 3 additional classrooms, it's different than how you would think of elementary, where 3 classrooms equals 60 kids.
Sure.
Because you can take those kids and spread them out among 68 classrooms. So those 3 additional spaces actually equates to a lot of kids. Is what I'm saying.
Yep, okay, that's great. And then we have the potential to do, in addition, down the road, and hopefully the potential, if we're able to make the improvements to the 18 to 22 program, that would free up some additional classrooms in here as well. But, that's great.
And
Thank you.
Just again on the usage, did Mr. Bishop comment on sort of the bespoke classrooms, like the science labs, the ones that you can't just sort of, a lot of teachers share classrooms or there's movement. Is our capacity in the specially designed classrooms currently sufficient? I know we don't know what the growth will be, but.
There has been no talk about any of the specially designed classrooms not. I think in looking at, because we took a tour with Mr. Bishop and Mr. Pominville and Mr. Person, and I think when there's a specialized classroom, in some cases it's for special education needs, like those are the classroom spaces that it feels like we're sort of struggling to free up a little bit, right? Sometimes when you look and you say, in a particular academic support period there may only be 5 students, you like to put 5 students in a classroom that fits 5 students and put 25 students in a classroom that fits 25 students. So there's a lot of shuffling for sure that goes around all day. That's all.
That is all for your report.
Yes.
Okay, so for the school committee chair report, I have approved payroll warrant S19019, and the payroll warrant has been included in your packet. And I have approved the accounts payable warrants 19-079, 19-080, 19-081, 19-082, and 19-083. And all warrants have been included in your packet. And then, as an update on the school committee office hours that Mina and I did over at Legacy Farms, it was tremendous. We had almost 15 people there.
Yeah, easily.
The room that we were in, which was a great room, there was not even enough seating because they all were right there at the beginning. There was a lot of enthusiasm to engage with us. People, many of whom are new to the community, had questions and, brought forward some different things that they wanted to ask questions about and ask concerns about, everything ranging from, questions about the transitions into the schools when the people are moving here. One comment from a person who had been very happy about that, and then some other questions. And then there was, and I think this went out to the entire school committee, about the questions about the Legacy Farms North bus. So that was a topic of conversation as well. And I had a conversation with Susan about what has been kind of happening in the background of the school is not able to run the bus up there because it's a private road, and that's sort of their frustration, is trying to figure out how to get those kids not waiting at the bottom of that road where traffic can be heavy with the buses, and they have, another issue is that they have trucks and things going through, they're doing construction still in the development, and they're trying to figure out how they can address the situation, and to date, a solution has not emerged, but we are hopeful that something will work out to make that better. So it is difficult because our ability with we can't make the bus company drive up there, we can't make the town accept the road as a public road because it's not completed, and there are risks inherent in that. So more to come on that, so.
There is a plan, though, at some point to
There is
accept it as a public road once everything's done up there.
I believe so. The issue is there's still a couple of years left of construction, and it's a lot of kids coming down, and there are photos they had sent along.
They included them in the email, yeah.
It is a concerning situation for them, and it's just hard to figure out what the solution is. When our hands are tied, we can't make other people do something outside of our purview, but we also, where we can't make the bus company go up there either, and we have to contract just with our bus company.
Do you know if the road completion is on schedule?
I don't know what the schedule is because they have to finish all the homes up there before it's finished. Like, they won't, until the development is completely done, the town won't accept it. And I think I'm not into construction, but my understanding is there's something they do to the road after they're done with the construction, and there aren't so many vehicles going on it.
Again, it's not the official word, but one of the parents had expressed that about 4 more years to go. And I guess the concern that we shared was this, right? Like, from a school's perspective, we have certain, it's our purview is limited in a certain instance, but at the same time, you feel for the situation and what the kids are experiencing, and sometimes errors happen with the drop off or what have you. So it's a painful situation, however you look at it. So one of the suggestions was, from a school committee standpoint, would we be able to set or kind of have some influence on the builder, right? And we don't know what influence necessarily we have on the builder, but the one thought was, if there is a meeting that's called out with all parties to talk about it, we will come back to the school committee and ask if there's willingness to attend such a meeting, and see where we go with it.
I would definitely recommend that we go back to Legacy Farms at another point in the future, just because they were very interested in engaging with us, and that we then set forward at some point another date for April office hours in perhaps a different location. We had talked about the senior center as one location we'd like to hit. I don't know if people have other thoughts on hot spots in town. We can.
Legacy Farms was actually very cozy. It was really nice, the office space that they have. It's like their clubhouse. It's really nice.
So that is all I have for school committee office hours. Do we want to go ahead and bring the bus parking lot?
I think so, yes.
Presentation.
Since all of our bus parking lot people are here.
And I will say, I forgot to say this in my chair report, but I did receive feedback from one of the community reps from the middle school council that they had actually, ironically unrelated to the fact that we were having a presentation here, had been discussing the drop-off and pickup at the middle school and concerns about traffic flow there, and the hope that this bus parking lot would alleviate some issues on the campus as a whole during that. See that back for a second.
I'll press the button, you do the talking. How's that?
So, thank you. Introduce, obviously, Chief Lee and Phil Powers that are also here. They have witnessed firsthand everything that we're going to talk about, so adding their expertise from an emergency management standpoint is important. We can talk about it in terms of what it means from an operational standpoint here at the district. So just to kind of step back, because this has been going on for 2 years, So in 2017, we put together a scope of services basically for the campus master plan in looking at basically how can we do all of this better. So what we had looked at was the traffic flow evaluation. So it was a full evaluation of the existing traffic circulation as it relates to bus, students, and parent vehicles. And what you'll hear later when you talk to transportation engineers, they speak of the multimodal transportation. In other words, there's all different avenues of people getting to and from a campus. Again, develop recommendations for the efficient traffic pattern, getting all waiting traffic onto campus. So this began before the Hayden Row project was completed as well. Also before there was a turf field. So just to kind of bring you back that far. And the separation of the bus and vehicle traffic was a priority. Going to the next slide, parking was also one of the priorities in the scope of services, looking at the location and size of student parking lots as it relates to the efficiency, ease of access to the school building, and the number of student drivers. One of the big conversations that we had was what can we do to bring the students up from the back of the school in terms of the safety of kids walking down there late at night, after sporting events, whatever it was. Evaluating the staff parking lots as it relates, again, to the efficiency and ease of access to the building. Evaluates visitor parking for the same, and determining space for bus parking up to 28 buses. And as you know now, we will, in FY20, have 29 buses.
And one thing I will add is, so I had asked Mr. Bishop to let me know how many students right now are currently on a wait list for student parking here, and the number is 40.
Okay.
There are 40 kids who would like to be driving to school, but there is no room for their car.
And lastly, the last two pieces were safety, basically looking at all users within the campus for safety as it related to the lighting, security cameras, signage, and again, that distance from the buildings. And the other look was where, as we look at a full campus, could we put some type of a storage facility? So again, this was a long-term look. Where we were going, because we didn't want to make a move without thinking about the full plan of all these different things and what it would affect. So from the master plan, the step one in what was called phase one was the school bus lot, and that is how it was put on the town meeting in 2018, was step one of this master plan, which spoke to this. So again, our current conditions, what we're looking at doing is, again, that separation of that multimodal. So the separation of the bus and vehicle traffic, which we currently have at all of our schools except here at the middle school, high school. Marathon, you have the buses in the back, the parents in the front. Elmwood, you have the buses in the front, parents are in the back. Hopkins, again, buses are in the back and the parents are in the front. But the middle school and high school, right now, we have everything in the front of the building. So again, current conditions, there are over 1,500 students registered to ride the bus. There's currently 28 buses. You have 60 students that are exiting to go to the senior lot, 40 going to the tennis court lot. You have 4 to 5 driving schools and over 35 parent cars. So just to give you an idea of what it looks like out there, that's over 1,700 students and 160 vehicles all in the same area. So again, the goals was that separation of bus and vehicle traffic, the safety of the students, and emergency access. Again, looking at that multimodal, you have walkers, you have parent cars, you have bus cars, you have student cars, you have bike riders. So lots of different things, lots of activity going on in the same place. Now, these next two slides just really shows some excerpts from traffic engineer studies, if you will. Basically, the first one, school bus loading areas should be separated from parent drop-off and pickup areas if at all possible. separate the school bus loading and parking areas from automobile parking areas. This separates both the buses and bus riders from automobile traffic. And this last one, providing for a physical separation of basic modes is both a design issue, layout of separate driveways, loading areas, etc., and an operation issue, enforcement of bus zones, supervision of crosswalks. And this paper was interesting because this citation, this picture, they used as a site layout to avoid, which pretty much is what we have. We just have that raised curb separating the buses and the vehicles. And so that was a citation of what to avoid. So in the discussions over these years, we looked at all different areas around campus of where could we put the buses to solve and separate some of the, all of these different avenues that we've been talking about. So you can see in this first slide, we looked at stacking them in the front. What you see basically is a visual of what 29 buses would look like. That's approximately 700 feet of queue. And the red X's represent all of the areas of conflict. So there are several parking lots that are blocked, and the emergency access between the middle school and high school would be blocked as well. So this was one avenue that we looked at.
Before we go to the next slide,
Yep.
there's one thing that I do want to say about this, not necessarily that configuration, but the configuration that we have now. If you look at where that crosswalk comes down toward Hayden Row, and it wouldn't matter if the buses were queued there or if they're currently in our bus loop, we have kids who step off of that curb, and we have cars coming into the middle school, buses exiting, so that crosswalk for me is one of those places of concern. And then as I look at that student parking lot or even the faculty parking lot, we have kids who are getting out of those cars and walking toward the building or exiting the building and walking toward their cars while parents are picking up. So kids are constantly walking in the flow of traffic, and those are the two places for me in this configuration, or the current configuration, that make me very nervous when I'm out there.
So the next,
If we can go back, I think that's what the fire chief would speak as, that no fire apparatus could get to the front of the school.
With this configuration, you mean? Yes. Right.
Yeah, I just wanted
That's a problem.
to note that I did speak with Chief Slam, and he got tied up on something. But that was one of the big key issues, is
Correct.
emergency access.
right, and I know, so everybody, like I said, over these years, we've had multiple conversations, and one of the things that Chief Slayman did say, is also not only the fact that the vehicles are there, but it's that visual, clearance as well. And it's a lot easier for an apparatus to see over a car, but not so much to see over a bus. So having them there not only blocks it physically, but also visually.
You have the tennis court lot where kids wouldn't be able to get out to go home till after 2 o'clock.
Correct. So all of those lots are blocked in this configuration. So this next one is looking at the back of the campus and using basically that emergency access all along. So in order to do this, again, you would need to add probably a minimum of 10 feet to create a safe distance between the building, the buses, and for students to be able to walk. And there are elevation changes so that, this is not this isn't something we could just do. It also blocks Hopkins Road, as you can see. And again, it takes away the entire back emergency access for our emergency personnel. When these buses were to exit, they would also exit through the middle school parent dismissal, and again, is another conflict area.
You also have 90 students parked in the water tower lot where they'd have to be walking by those buses to get to that lot.
So this would be bringing the buses up between the buildings. So So probably the access to do this is you would bring them in. This one becomes very difficult because the access of where you go to create what is considered door side. If you bring them in from the bus loop, then door side faces the middle school, but then when you get down below, it's facing Field 9 and kids have to walk around to the opposite end. If you bring them up from Hopkins Road in between, then door side faces the buildings, but that road between middle school and high school is very tight, and now again, you have door side facing the building. So even this configuration, and the other piece too, between both of those, going all the way behind and then this, you never have clear visual sight for an all clear. So you have to go around multiple corners to determine that you have an all clear of students.
And this here, the entire population of the middle school that comes to the buses would be coming out right where that first bus is.
Right.
So they'd be walking next to the buses.
Yeah, which is alarming, I think, with that notion of the all clear, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Because inevitably, you'll have some student who's late who decides to, race down to that very last bus, and when those buses start moving.
And then this last configuration was really just, again, looking at, a potential of a double stack and what could that do. Again, this interferes with middle school parent drop-off. You would lose parking in that parking lot. You do not have that full visual, all clear. Your sight lines are very much affected. So these are just all the places that we looked. So we played around as much as possible. Even Phil rode on buses with us, and we tried to see where a bus would fit. So there has been a lot of discussion about that. So then lastly, what we came up with was really using Field 9. It pushes it out of the emergency access road. It gives the buses the ability to come in and out from the Hopkins Drive. There is a walkway that still allows the students to get down to the lower lots. The current way that the kids walk through the middle of the lot, there's an elevation change, so as we build this lot, the more natural student progress would be down either one of the driveways, as opposed to cutting through the middle, which you see them do now. And then you have a very clear visual. They're always in front of the buses. One of the things that you always talk about, even when you're establishing a bus stop, is you try to make it so that students are approaching buses from the front. So with this configuration, when students are coming down, again, they'll always be facing and they're coming at it from the front as opposed to the back. Keeps the emergency access road free. Right now, the lot is planned to have driver spaces as well. If we continue and need to increase the number of buses that would fit down in there, then we would reduce the number of driver spots and they would have to caravan, which they do now for different events. If they're having a safety meeting, they all meet in one area and they caravan to the safety meeting. So that's not an unusual thing for them to do. So we feel that there's room for growth in this area, even if we increase the buses. So I'll let these two fine gentlemen speak a little bit more if they have more to add.
May I just ask one question? So is it 33 buses, space for 33 buses in there right now?
30.
30,
Yeah.
okay. And 33 bus driver spaces? Okay.
Yeah, and I think one of the nice parts about having your buses parked on your campus is, in the event of an emergency, those buses can become a place for kids to leave the building and go into those buses. I mean, if you're, God forbid, having something like a bomb scare, right, and you don't want to actually send all of your kids home, they can go into those buses. And then the other issue, I think, is that instead of your driver getting called to go to Ashland to pick up a bus and bring that bus to Hopkinton, that driver simply has to get in his car and get to that lot right there. So it probably saves about 20 minutes time. So in terms of I don't know, emergency, it might be helpful to have your buses on campus.
This will also give us more parking out front of the school if the buses are parked there, and we're going to use the bus loop for parent pickup and in front of the school. So we'll have two areas for parent pickup, which will take the cars off the road, which will take the cars out of the parking lots. So right now, in the F lot where the senior lot is, that's the overflow for teachers. So the row of cars that run parallel with the driveway, that's for staff and teachers. They can move over to the bus loop where, by the island, where we could put at least completely just for students.
Yeah, in a future slide, we'll show kind of the potential of what we could do.
So can you just talk a little bit about the student drivers who park in H, J, and K lots? How many kids and how would they get to the lots?
I believe
Especially
that,
J and K.
Sure. J and K, they usually, well, they go down the loop road, and there's actually a path
Right, by Hopkins, right?
by Hopkins before you get to the Hopkins, and it comes right out in J lot. That's great when the snow is not there, and it's a nice clean path. If not, then they have to walk in front of the Hopkins school to get to K lot.
Yeah.
We also have 12 spots for students in the Hopkins lot too, which is the furthest lot down.
But they tend to go like out the back to the left.
They go out the back to the right
To the left. Now they.
to go down to J and K.
Yeah,
That's
they go to the
correct.
left, okay.
And people go into H lot, there would be a walkway. Right now, there's a path that they can get out to the loop road.
So there are like 80 kids in J and K?
There's,
would
I
you
think
say?
there's about 80 spots between J and K,
74.
74,
Hopkins.
and then there's like 32 or so in H lot.
And at dismissal, I have a student driver, can you tell? At dismissal, I know the, just normal days, the exiting onto 85, they all get in the cars at once, they all back to about the split with the Hopkins Drive sometimes, with just the student cars.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
When the students are exiting at the end of the day,
Yeah.
they all come up at once. The queue to get out onto 85 goes back sometimes to close
It
to the
does,
split,
yeah.
right? It's congested.
So the advantage when the buses are in this lot is now our crossing guard would be at Hopkins Drive. And his job is to stop traffic and get the traffic out of the campus so that the buses would move. So now all of our young student drivers would actually have that crossing guard that would be stopping traffic and getting them out, which right now they're just darting because our crossing guard is really responsible for the high school drive to get the buses out. But now if the buses are using Hopkins Road to access this parking lot, the crossing guard would be there as well. And he would be continuing to clear that driveway because when those buses roll, we need those buses to go. We can't have that driveway filled with student drivers. So it actually increases the safety of the student drivers.
And we'll have to hold the traffic at all the exit points onto the loop road to allow the buses to get out, right?
Once the buses roll, we have dispatch there.
Okay.
Yeah, once you get that first bus out,
Yeah.
it'll all fall.
They all go, yeah.
And we have that problem now anyways, because you can't, when you come out of the school, you can't take that left turn anymore.
Right.
In theory, you can. Everybody still does. But so that's even congested even more right now.
Yeah.
I'm hoping if this does go through that you will be able to take a left turn out of the school someday again, so. And that might, stop.
You won't be dealing with any of the buses in front that
Sure.
you currently do now. And you mentioned when we met in your office that there's more room for parents to queue up now if the buses are in the back and we don't have anybody queuing up on the road, which can be dangerous.
So we'll move along. So the other concerns that we had talked about really were just kind of the enrollment and space needs, which Dr. Kavanaugh spoke to already in terms of really the back we've got that ability, you can see that 6/6 wing and the 4/4 wing. So the preliminary plans for future would be to add on to that smaller 4/4 wing. And you also still do have room in the front if that was something that an engineer decided was also another potential to add on. So our other benefits with doing this is that improved traffic flow, which is what we spoke about as part of the master plan, increasing parking, and of course, lastly, a financial impact. So two things that we looked at, two different configurations of what could this mean if we move the buses to the back. This first configuration gives you about 1,200 feet of available queue within the campus, like Chief Lee spoke about. Gives you an additional 92 potential parking spaces that could be built out. So again, this is future building out. If we just move the buses, you could create those 32 spaces in the front, in the bus lot, without too much construction. The advantages of this is also to be looking at potentially building a driveway that actually comes out where the light is. There's discussions that would have to happen with that, but you can see there's potential to add on to different parking areas to increase the parking. Again, looking at our long-term plan in terms of students and staff. Another configuration would be...
These are all outside of the proposed project right now?
That is correct. This, again...
It's a phased.
When you want to look at your master plan, you want to know what's next and what's next and what's next. So if, then what? So these are other potential, if you were to loop the parent traffic actually through the bus loop, it gets the parent cars actually closer to the building, both on the middle school and high school side. It does cut down on the number of parking spaces that you could do, and it does cut down a little bit on that parent queue. But these, again, are future discussions of what could be if we were to move that.
Mr. Rothenbeck, what is the two-way operations near the tanks?
I'm sorry?
On the right side?
So over at the water tower, that would be the other thing, is to look at actually, that right now is just a one-way in, but maybe expanding that driveway a little bit so it was a two-way. So really trying to create different avenues to get parents both in and out. When you have a one-way in and a one-way out on the other side, again, that becomes confining. And lastly, what we have talked about in our budget discussions is the financial impact. The contractor has agreed to give us a credit towards the busing contract of $50,000 a year, and the excise revenue has been estimated a receipt of $50,000. So that has an annual financial impact of $100,000 if we were to get this completed. So.
Can you speak to what parent pickup would look like with just the expenditure of this project? Like, if we put the bus parking lot in, what could we do without spending any additional money that would change parent pickup?
Do we have a picture of the school now, out front?
I think so.
Chance?
I think at the beginning.
Like the beginning, the one where
Yeah, that's good right
There
there.
you go.
So, right now, the parent pickup is,
one of those laser pointers.
so there'd be two parent pickups.
I actually asked for one, we didn't have one. I apologize, I did try to get my hand on a laser pointer, we didn't have one.
Not the shortest one.
We'll get you a ladder.
We have the current parent pickup right here that goes up and around.
Yeah.
So we'd have a second one that would come in here, and the bus will come and pick up on the side here next to the sidewalk. This is the area I was talking about for additional parking for staff. So you'd have two areas, and that would take, right now, we have cars queued up into the parking lots, the staff parking lots. So they're sitting there waiting for their child to come out. So you have kids trying to leave in their cars, they can't back out because cars are parked there. Kids are leaving, parents are leaving, and you have, a lot of students, and I think in senior life, you have almost 90 parking spaces for students. They're walking out there. Plus they're walking, I mean, they're driving their cars from here to here, it's a lot closer to that door, but, the athletes.
That's a true story, they
So
do
you'd
that.
have two places for, parent pickup, which would open up all those parking lots. And it would, the danger would be minimized.
Mr. Rothermick, I must say this is great job. It's very visual, all the questions and concerns I had felt when we met last time. I think you've addressed them beautifully, and all the visuals are extremely helpful. I'm fully supportive of this. Thank you.
Good, thank you. So the only downside I see is, what do the kids use Field 9 for now? What would that take away from them? I mean, this is great. Obviously, it seems like we have to go with it, but what are we taking away?
Before we even went there, we did ask.
Yes, I did. Sorry about that.
We did ask what impact this would have of Ms. King, and she said it really does not affect from an athletic program standpoint.
And PE and other stuff no, nothing, okay.
I think it's used currently for intramurals, like club ultimate frisbee, like recreational activities, which could probably go to some other field. They also use it occasionally for Lake Hillerfest, which is sort of it is a nice place to combine an indoor-outdoor activity because it's cafeteria plus field, and the Be Free uses that for that kind of thing. They would lose that, but it's minimal. I think it's minimal use as a field.
Yeah, it's just a practice field, and some kids do go out there in the nice weather, but you still also have that nice patio out back, too. When they have any type of function, they can go over to the middle school football field if Mr. Keller will allow them to.
Mr. Rothermick, just one question that I have is, when you were going through these proposals, were some of the students involved and some parents in these conversations? Have they had a chance to provide some input?
We did not speak with students, no, but we were speaking really with the administration. I mean, actually, Phil would probably have
Yeah.
a better beat on the students than I
I
would.
have talked to a lot of students, and when you say anything about additional parking,
Right.
they're in favor.
Okay, great, thank you.
I just have, so, first of all, this is a huge undertaking. I mean, this is like one of those magic squares, and you can never get the numbers in order, because it's like you move one thing, and then where's the other thing gonna go? So I appreciate this undertaking. It's a lot. My biggest hesitation on the whole thing, I'm convinced we need a lot there, is just putting buses there, because in addition, I mean, I know the students want more parking, staff needs more parking, the staff lot is crazy overfull. I mean, you see the cars all around the periphery in like non-spots, because there's nowhere to park for staff. When we have parent back-to-school night, concerts, any event that parents go to, there's no parking. So it takes a very prime location, and it puts buses there, which I get a lot of this, it's just very frustrating to me that we don't have a better option, that we'll put the buses somewhere else and let staff or students use that space, or parents at night, or also parking for the turf field. So, I'm not an engineer. My dream would be to put a staff lot there and have parent pickup move to the back of the school and put the buses on J and K. That's my dream. That's kind of what I came up with. It probably isn't feasible.
You would lose all the parking for the juniors by taking those two lots. Those the lots that the juniors park at.
You could move them up, though. If you move all the staff
But you're not
behind-
getting,
If you take the staff lot and you put it behind the school, and you can put all those students, the 85 spots that faculty occupy there would be open to students, which is roughly the student capacity in J and K. And then you'd have students and staff, and then in the off hours, you wouldn't have buses there.
so for the last 2 years, we have been trying to put the parents behind the school. We set up a pickup zone on the loop road to pick up the children, and that was so unsafe.
Yeah,
I
the
mean, the
loop
signs
road
are
is-
still there. That would be making it a dangerous situation to have the parent pick up unless you did construction for it,
Well, I
making
think
the
the
road
parent,
wider.
it'd have to go in the staff lot. The parent pickup couldn't be on the loop road. I agree, it doesn't work. It would have to queue around the staff lot, which,
yeah.
eyeballing it, it's like 800 to 1,000 feet. I don't know. I mean, it's just, I have tried every possible way to think of how to keep buses from being there. Appreciating the $100,000 financial, incentive, just because this great solution is still going to leave me with nowhere to park on parent back to school night or my kids playing on the athletic field. It's frustrating, and I have talked to a bunch of parents of high school students because I have, I'm in that group, and
Well, maybe we could
parents want
ask the
parking.
buses to park off-site or at a different school for those nights. To another school, they could maybe park at Marathon.
That's a good point.
And you could open up that lot for that. I understand because, they build an elementary school and they have enough parking for the staff, but they don't think about open house and curriculum night and so. Oh, yeah, it's a nightmare at every school.
It is.
It is.
Well, you heard Ms. Carver just speak about that,
Oh.
and that is a difficulty in every school.
Well,
That's because their field had snow on it.
but phase two, right, that's phase two is the next phase, would allow for more parking spaces to be put onto the campus that would hopefully address some of that.
Yeah, I mean, there is a potential as we continue to march down this path. Like I said, those two different looks, you could be adding, 92 spaces or 55 spaces. So, there is potential to keep going and expanding your available parking.
But those involve tearing down the White House, likely?
Before it falls down.
Well, I mean, I just worry, phase two, I think the phasing is great. We have so many expenses coming down the pike. I'm just nervous about how much capacity we have to invest in traffic versus educational capacity, and, it's.
Well, we'd have an extra $100,000 to do it if we had the buses in town, though. I mean, that would be the.
Yeah.
But there's no real rush to do phase two and phase three. Right now, there's a rush to do this for the safety of the front of the school.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could postpone that if you wanted to spend the money more for education, but
And this ties back to the vote to appropriate, I can't remember the number. $200,000 to finish off this project, right? Which is good for a finite period of time. Yes?
Well, I mean, so like I said, what was appropriated at the May 18 town meeting was phase one of the campus master plan, which is the school bus lot on Field 9. So the 300,000 would be to actually complete that based on the estimates, based on the design that was required, all the stormwater management, all the landscaping, everything that needed to be done to continue the project. If the decision was to not move forward, then the decision should be to pull it off the warrant and give back the money to the town because it was voted for this.
Right. And there's no time, this is still preliminary, there's no timeline as to when it would be done. Is the goal to try to finish it in the summer again, or is?
So we have a letter of intent with a contractor that if it's voted at town meeting, to move forward and build it this summer.
Okay. And finish before school starts.
Yes.
All right.
So,
that's the plan.
On our agenda, we do not have a motion to move this forward or not, so I would like to propose that we put this off for a vote until the next meeting, in part because we're missing one member, and in part because I feel that if the community had anything they wanted to say before we push it forward with a final vote, I would like to have that opportunity for people to voice their opinion. I will say, kind of with regard to the safety, because that is the biggest piece here to me, I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot of how much of a safety concern do you think this is? Like, how concerned are you?
I think the major thing is separating buses from the cars. It's just an accident waiting to happen. And, and the superintendent brought up a good point too, in the area of emergency planning, and I know the fire chief would talk to that as well. But if you ever had to evacuate the school, you could shelter in place people, especially if there's foul weather or things going on. You could shelter in place the kids in the buses in the lot. Phil?
yeah, I mean, the kids, running through the buses, the kids running through the parking lots with all the parents parked in the rows. I think it's a real dangerous situation there.
You've been saying that for a couple of years.
You have, but
You
I
have
wanted to.
been.
Yeah.
I
Right,
just
right.
wanted
No,
to
I'm
bring
glad.
I
bring
mean,
that out for
all the buses
discussion.
in the back, they're shut off, they're in their assigned spots, once all the kids are on the bus, then, we have walkie-talkies, we give the green light for the buses to leave. We have monitors in the, I think there's like 2 to 3 monitors out in that parking lot in the front, just watching to make sure kids aren't running through the buses. You can't see these kids in front of the bus. So I think having it in the back, you have more control. I think there's going to be cameras put out in that area, so that could be monitored too. The safety of the buses too.
I do worry about vandalism with the buses.
Yeah.
Like, I think that parking lot with cameras and lights makes sense.
Yes. I mean, I know there's already a camera out there. I think it just has to be adjusted to point it more on the buses. It just scares me every day just to see these kids, go into their cars and the parents, just watching some of the way they drive and the kids trying to get to the bus loop. I'd like to see the bus loop eliminated from, if it's a parent pickup, that would be eliminated from the kids parking there for sports. Anybody from JK that wanted to come up closer, the senior lot's still going to be available. A lot of the teachers leave by 2 o'clock, so there'll be a lot of staff spots that are available to the kids. I just, every day I get a complaint of how the kids are driving too fast into that bus loop and not waiting for all the buses to exit before they start pulling in. So,
If we move ahead with the bus lot and say a year from now, we come up with a new phase 2 that moves the buses a little bit more remotely on the campus and repurposes that lot for staff potentially, as we kind of fine tune our vision for phase 2, might that be a possibility?
sure.
The whole thing is he's doing, drop off and dismissal.
Yeah.
So if we push the buses further in the back, we'd have to still come up with that solution of where are they doing dismissal? Unless the kids are gonna walk all the way down the loop road to get to the buses down there.
Right. And if we move the parents from the front, we can't use the bus loop as the bus loop still? If the parent pickup is going behind the school, we couldn't use the bus loop. Is it, because the documents all talked about separating, and I wasn't clear if like a raised curb, because right now the students feel very safe. They're students, they always think they're invincible, but they feel very safe because when they come out of the middle school and the high school, they don't go anywhere. If they're going to the bus, they could just get on the bus. Like, cars can't
But
get
it'll be
in
the
there.
same, just in the back.
Yeah.
Plus, you're also, so right now you have probably 90% of the kids entering the school in the morning through that door, the 2 front doors. This is going to be separating all how many ride the bus?
1,500.
1,500 would be coming through the back door, and all the drop-offs would be going through the front door. So it's separating it. They're entering the building in 2 different areas.
Yeah.
I think it would be easier to get to the classrooms too. And the foyer area wouldn't be as packed as it is now.
Right.
I think one of the problems with using the bus loop area, which we encounter now for parking, is that when somebody shows up at 12:30 and puts their car there, and then a bus gets there at 1:15, there's who owns that car in the parking lot? And I'll tell
It's
you.
pretty embarrassing when you ticket the superintendent.
It's pretty embarrassing when it's
Maybe
the
more than once.
superintendent's car, I'm just saying. It could have happened
And I'm
once
still
or
there.
twice.
We can't
I
let
did
that happen.
that too. Science project.
No, it does happen. I speak from experience.
I am.
And it wasn't Carol, it wasn't Carol. But it'd been a previous one.
I am very compelled by the safety piece alone, also by the fact that there would be some money coming back into the schools where we definitely need that for some of the other educational things we have. I don't know if other people want to speak to it, and in addition to speak to the thought of moving it, the vote, because we did not put on our agenda that we were voting this.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I do want to thank Ms. Rothermick for having heard us and done all this research and worked with people who put safety first. And did I hear that really #1 in the country?
That's correct.
Thank you so much for, continuing to do what you do for our town.
Thought someone was messing with me.
I'd like to say I was not surprised.
This also will increase, income for more students to park on the campus too, so, because you're opening up at least 20 or 30 spots in front of the school, so
Times a couple $100, there we go.
$155 a student.
That's great. Well,
Yeah.
And it's not time sensitive, right? We're okay if we wait till whatever our
April
next
4th.
meeting is.
So just to remind you, at this point in time, the school committee has already voted for this to be on the town meeting warrant.
Right.
So your vote on the 31st of January was to just,
we voted to move it along in the capital with our
To-
capital items. So do we in fact need another vote on this?
to be honest, unless you're reversing your vote,
We don't need a,
I don't believe you do. What you, your motion on January 31st, because I had to go back and see what exactly it was myself, was just to review with the school committee prior to proceeding with the project. So unless you're reversing the vote, which right
don't
now
need
it
to.
is on town meeting,
so in order to reverse the vote, we would need a motion for
You would
somebody
need a
to.
motion
A
to-
motion to reopen the vote, and then it would have to be postponed to a future meeting. Would be the.
Right.
I see
So
what
I
you're
just want to ask this question. As I recall, I think we had made a motion around exploring other options.
so that, and that's where I was trying to say that the money, the question was, could the money that's already been appropriated be used to build a parking lot somewhere else in town?
Right.
And that's where I was saying, the way it was worded for town meeting, it could not. Because it was phase one of the master plan, which is why I was re-showing you what that master plan was. So,
And the wording says on the high school
on
campus,
the, yes.
so that
So,
It's not.
one of the avenues later on in your agenda, we're going to give you an update on the FY20 budget, which includes the operating budget and the capital plan. So short of this not having a motion, if you were to vote down the capital plan later on in the agenda, otherwise, I think, moving forward, you're all set.
So I would suggest that we can plan to stand with the vote we have unless somebody makes a motion to open it back up. And once, in that case, we will push it forward if we vote, so to the next meeting. So that's,
Amanda, do you have anything?
This is a hard one for me. I'm gonna sit.
all right.
I'm gonna
then-
cozy up with this idea.
Okay, then, hearing nothing there, I will move into, so thank you, actually, before we move anywhere. I just want to
Thank
thank
you
you
very
both for
much.
coming,
Yeah,
because
This is great.
you bring a level of comfort just in hearing your perspective on it, so.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Susan, for
Have a good night.
Good night.
You
Great
too.
to see you.
I always like to hope you have a quiet night.
Right, right.
All right, so that brings us back down to liaison reports.
Oh, I have one of those.
Excellent.
Speaking for the policy working group, we just did a quick visual, although I can give it to you verbally, but it's good with the visual, so we'll use the slides. We met today, just to update you on what we're working on right now. Our focus right now is standardizing the naming, and if you look at our policy manual, you will see a mix of policies, procedures, and forms, and a little bit of whatnot that's out there in our policy. So what we are trying to do to make things more comprehensible to everybody in the community, including ourselves, is to standardize the naming of forms and procedures. So the current condition is you'll have a policy, and then it would be a -R1, -E1, -1. There's kind of a mix of suffixes, and it could be a form, it could be a procedure, it could be anything. So we are moving with the process of changing to the naming convention that you see. So if there's a procedure that hangs under a policy, it'll be the policy code -PRC and then a number, sequential number 1, 2, 3, 4. Same with forms, again, the policy code, a -FRM, and then the number. And hopefully we won't have a lot of the whatnot, as we're going through. But if there is a reference document, which we found potentially one of, it'll be the policy code dash, I think, REF, and then a number. So that when you look at something, you clearly know what you're going to get when you click on it. So we're going through this. If we just, Carol, go to the next slide. So the status of the cleanup is that we've reviewed all the policies alphabetically through IHBG-E1, which clearly violates our naming. So there are a couple of different outcomes in our review. One is it's a simple rename, and I gave you a few examples here, like we have EEA-1, it'll become EEA-PRC1, it's a procedure, it's bus safety. And you can read those examples, but we don't think those need a vote from the school committee. That's just a naming change, it's not a content change, so we'll just go ahead and do those unless there's any objection. There are a few things that we're finding that don't really belong on the list at all. And we'll share with you the list of those things that we find. I gave you a couple of examples here. There's ACER, which is a grievance procedure for complaints alleging violation in Section 504, et cetera. This content is not really a procedure. And all of it is contained within our handbooks, which the high school and middle school handbooks are policy. And the elementary handbook has this language as well. So we don't really understand why it's in our policy manual. We don't think it belongs there. It's not in the Massachusetts School Committee reference manual. So that's an example of something we think could just come off. It doesn't really add any value. Likewise, IHAMB-E1 is the parent's sex ed notice. It's actually a form letter. We're not in the habit of putting form letters that principals and other administrators use in our policy manual. So it probably doesn't belong there. It doesn't have anything to do with the policy or how we implement it. It's just a sample letter that principals can use. So there are some things that will come up that we're going to recommend we just take off, just as a heads up. And then the last slide. And then there are some that as we're going through this sort of global cleanup and looking at all these policies, we are still finding things that need a little bit more review. And it's possible that this one we just stumbled on today, the ACAB sexual harassment policy, it's kind of a mix of policy and procedure. The MASC reference policy is also a mix of policy and procedure, and it's got some hard-coded names. It's not really a good model for us. So we just kind of tag that as for review later, and that will come back to the school committee if we make any changes. So that's kind of what we're up to. And we're hoping this will also be good groundwork for the cutover to the new website. So when the policies go live, they'll be clean.
This is great.
Did I miss anything?
I think so, but I mean, the things that we're considering taking out are not policy. So it wouldn't be something that would affect all of us because, yeah, they're just, every once in a while we find some random document in there that is, at some time was very important, but at the moment is no longer relevant to whatever it is that we're doing. So, yeah. Amanda did a great job.
And there is some cross-references to ghost documents that
right.
we don't know. We don't know where they are, what they are. We can't. They don't exist any longer. So we're cleaning that as we go.
Thank you.
I have some updates. All right. So the first one is, Dr. Kavanagh talked about it, the seal of biliteracy. This was something that was started over a year ago, I think, about a year ago.
It's been a while.
And then I was so excited to see that work finally taking off. We've missed you, Ms. Parson, at that meeting, and Jill Kimball and Ms. Marlene Miracle. Yes, thank you. Ms. Miracle, they were fabulous. They've done so much groundwork on it. So this year, the focus of the seal of biliteracy is purely at the high school level with all the tests and whatnot, and making sure kids have that seal ready to go as they're graduating. So the discussion was more around, what we would do in terms of giving out the seal, what the seal looks like, etc. What will it mean for distinction? But going into the next year, the focus is more about pathways as to how can we bring that work down to lower grades, middle school, down to elementary. My hope is that we start at the earliest grade levels because kids are talking about, speaking in those languages very early on. But then you don't have tests related to that. So we had some good conversation around what could it look like. Could it be a poem that someone reads, the kids read? Could we have like a night where all of this assessment can happen, and how can we engage community members to be the assessors, if you will? So there's a test that the kids have to take in order to certify that they are literate in this other world language, if you will. Exciting news is there are 46 world languages spoken in our community.
46?
46.
That's fantastic.
So that was
seems
super
like bigger
exciting.
than last year.
I think last year was about 43. I think we've had 3 new, and some of them I've never heard at all. So it's learning. But again, Miss Kimball and Miss Miracle, fabulous. So that's on the seal of biliteracy. Exciting work ahead. And last time when we have a new board and we don't have it in the list of subcommittees, if you will. So I just wanted to check if everyone's okay with me continuing on that committee.
Oh, for seal of biliteracy?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Check that
I
one
might
off.
check. The other one is on the processes front. We had talked about a little bit that Nancy and I would work on some of the school committee processes. So one of the things that we took up as a first item is on the agendas. And I think, Amanda, you had also talked about it. So we're trying to put together a calendar of through the entire year, what are the areas through we go through with regard to the agendas. So a skeleton or a framework, if you will, a skeletal framework to kind of guide us through what those agendas look like. How many of these are initiated by community members? So for instance, we have Mr. Kilduff usually come in for the 26.2 and BAA Foundation, or some of the items which are field trip related. So we're kind of trying to draw out what the agendas look like, so that if any one of us want to bring in what is the time frame where we see some possibilities. So more on that later. We had a good conversation on that.
We had a great conversation on that, and I think you're not, you're humble, and you don't highlight how much work you actually put into setting up the spreadsheet that I think is really going to help us going forward, and to be able to look at what we're doing is a larger planning process. That was really great. I was very impressed, so thank you. I'm excited for everybody to see it.
That's check. A few more. One more is the Marathon Fund Committee. We had a very good meeting. We had someone from the middle school, Michael Webb, who is a coach as well as he's part of the START program. He had come with a funding request, and that is under consideration. So it's nice to be on the other side and kind of listen to some of it, and that's a possibility. But on the Marathon Fund Committee, I'm helping and working with Josh Grossetti from the town side to kind of highlight some of the work that the Fund Committee does. It's a fabulous group of people. And on the community communication front, we have been growing quite a bit, and we feel that we're getting to that place where we possibly, we have had no chair, no vice chair, none of that. So we're getting to that place where we feel we need to formalize some of the work. So that's something that's happening on the community communications group. Last but not the least, on the senior center front, Dr. Kavanaugh has been able to initiate some work with Karen Renaud, is it? And with Amy Beck, who's our senior center director, to put together a program possibly in May for seniors called Senior Prom. More details to come. So very exciting work there. And there's one thing that I have not been doing a great job of, which I would like some help with, is liaison to the planning board. So if there's anyone who's ready to take that on, that would be a huge help.
What time do they meet, Lena?
Mondays. And, the agreement is that if we can attend even once a month, that's great. And Muriel Kramer is fabulous, Amy Ritter-Bush. They're very good with sharing details, but kind of keeping an eye on the growth and some of the conversations, things that are coming up, it's very helpful, I think.
Yeah, I'll volunteer for that. Do you remember last week when I said that the center school reuse was disbanded, or whatever the wording?
So you've got extra
I said
time
it out
now?
loud, so now I'm on it. Yeah, I get
Wait, I
it.
think
Absolutely.
we got a couple more. Let me look through my.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jen.
Absolutely.
All right, absolutely. Do we need a formal vote for that, or be good?
Well, so you want to go ahead and make a motion, and we can
Yes.
have a formal vote?
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to replace me.
With me.
Yes, with Jen Devlin
second
as
that
the
motion.
liaison to the planning board. You second.
I second.
All
Thank
those
you.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is unanimous, and welcome aboard to the planning board liaison.
Thanks, happy to be here.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much.
I have one quick liaison report, really fast. The elementary school building committee continues to meet periodically, but it's to the point now where it's just essentially approving invoices, paying people who have done something in order to maintain or to finish off the construction of the building. So another reason why I should probably volunteer for the planning board liaison is because these meetings are very quick now because it's done, and I know Mrs. DeBow in the audience here, there's so much, such an awesome school, and it's coming to the end, and I think it's tough. The folks in that board are kind of like, it's weird to leave. Some of them have been together for 6, 7, it's a long time, right? Yeah, I've been there for 2 years. Some of them have been together for a really long time, so it's a tough breakup. But
I'll still bring you chocolate.
thank you. There was a bowl there last night, and everyone was like, "Oh, Lawrence!" Yeah, it was great. So, go ahead. That's it. That's all I got. I'll have planning board for you next time. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. I have just a quick one. There was a CPAC meeting this week, which went very well. There was a very nice group of parents, a large group of parents, and some newer faces, which is always fun. And the biggest update was the ESY program, which we've heard a lot about here, the extended school year program, and some programmatic changes that are going on there, and the pilot program that is being worked on. And actually, I'm going to point to Robin, because I know that you're on that subcommittee, which has been great work, I know. But doing a pilot for the intensive program to add some additional time for social and emotional type stuff, and they're going to do some field trips and some really wonderful opportunities for them, so that's exciting. All right, so then we are a little bit behind schedule, so we'll see if we can, we catch up here, but that brings us into new business, and the first item of new business we have is the Marathon Elementary gift account.
So these should go very quickly. We are looking for your approval to accept $520 in a gift check from Sager Sports in Medway, and that will be going to Marathon.
Motion. Seeking a motion to approve the fund, the 520, am I on the right? Yeah, $520 gift check from Sager Sports Corp. For the Marathon Elementary School gift account.
So moved.
Second.
Mina with the motion and Jen with the second. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye, and it is unanimous, and so passes, and that brings us to the Elmwood School gift account.
Yes, from the same source, Sager Sports Corporation in Medway. This time it's for $168, and that's going to the Elmwood School.
That's great. So I would seek a motion to approve the $168 gift check for the Elmwood Elementary gift account.
So moved.
Motion by Mina, second by Jen. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye, and it is moved unanimously, and that brings us down to budget transfers with Ms. Rothermere.
Thank you. Based off of the financial update that I showed you earlier, the first budget transfer would be to move some of the Elmwood general supply and guidance travel money into Elmwood professional development, and that's just really focusing on some professional development that they would like to do at the Elmwood School. The second one is from Mr. Person, and this is really looking at some of the overages in the Marathon gas. As I said, these are estimates that were put together as part of the building, ones that we adjusted in the future for FY20. As we kind of thought, we are going over budget in that, but we do have some savings in Hopkins, and just really kind of covering some of the other overages in the contract services.
I move to approve the budget transfers.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Second by Mina. All those in favor?
Aye. Yes.
Aye. Thank you. And then that moves us into item D, which is the middle school paraprofessional need. And Mr. Keller, would you like to come up?
Carol, do you want that? Is that relevant?
It is.
Thank you. I've had conversations with Dr. Zaleski, and together we are making this request. We had a student move in mid-February and attempted in the past several weeks to manage internally with paraprofessionals that we have internally and have not been able to successfully do that. So ultimately that is why we are bringing this request for an additional paraprofessional to be added at this time.
Do we know, we have, I mean, we need to, but we have money for this too.
So,
Yes.
so the funding source really is because right at this time, we're still running a positive variance.
Okay.
So in conversations with Dr. Zaleski and forward-looking, it looks as though, based on that we would be able to fund this position.
Okay.
So then I would seek a motion to approve the middle school paraprofessional for FY 2019 and FY 20.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate that.
Okay, that moves us down into the recruiting schedule for the Director of Student Services, and that is you, Dr. Kavanaugh.
Okay, so in your packet, you can see that Ms. Polnick did post for the position on March 4th, and the timeline is there for you. So the posting went up on March 4th, and it will be closing next Friday on March 29th. What will happen next is Ms. Parson and I will take a look at all of the resumes that we have gathered to date, and we will, sort of select those ones who have credentials to actually serve in that role. And so once we separate those out, that will be during the week of April 1st, we will hand those over to Ms. Polnick and a screening committee that she's going to be putting together. And she will be meeting with that screening committee during the week of April 1st, and then interviews will happen during the week of April 8th. In the following week, the successful candidates will be meeting with central office personnel, so Ms. Parson, Ms. Rothermick, and I, and then we will be bringing forth the successful candidates to the school committee for your approval. So what I've done is I've put up there the DESI guidelines around hiring the next Director of Student Services in the district, and I know that that's very difficult for you to read, so I will read it. According to state law, if we are a district that has fewer than 4,000 students, the school committee then appoints the successful candidate. It tells us that a school committee shall appoint a person to be its administrator of special education, and just so we have a sense of how that plays out and what my role is in it, and I know that that highlighted part in the center there is very difficult to read, so I will read it on my screen. It does say the superintendent manages the hiring process and selects the candidate, keeping the school committee informed, and the committee votes on the appointment based on the superintendent's recommendation. So that's how that will work. I will share with you now what Ms. Polnick recommends to be that first round of hiring committee. So let's see, I don't know if that's very helpful.
This is, I just want to make sure I got the,
Okay.
they're all the same, right?
So after Jen and I go through that stack and take a look at the resumes that are in there and who might be qualified to hold the position, we move those names on to a committee of volunteers who will actually conduct a whole round of interviews. What Ms. Polnick is recommending is that she would chair that, and I would also recommend that she do that. Our HR director is exceptional in running searches. She does it all the time. And she would also reach out to all of the people who appear on this list. So in terms of administration, she's recommending one secondary principal, one elementary principal, and the director of technology. For professional staff, she is looking for an elementary CISP personnel or a SPED teacher, a secondary CISP person or a SPED teacher, an elementary team chair, and a secondary team chair. So there would be 4 professional staff. She's looking for one special education administrative support staff, who would probably be the secretary to the Director of Student Services, Ms. Kresko. And then we would be looking for a parent or a community member and a CPAC rep. So I believe this is the group that she had put together when we hired Ms. Rothermick, and I think that this is the group she had put together the last time we hired a director of student services. So I leave that to you.
So I think I would like to see an additional, either a school committee rep or an additional parent rep on there. I don't know if others have any.
I was surprised not to see a school committee rep, but I hadn't been through this before, so I'm still learning.
I'm not against that. It's a big committee already, so, I mean, it's fine with me.
It would make it an,
I think there's 10 now, so it would make it 11.
11 is probably a better number, I would think, in terms of.
To vote, you have an odd number.
Oh, it's 11. No,
It's
it's
11
10, no, because the parent community member is the CPAC member, so it's
Oh, it
8,
is,
and then the two,
okay.
no, so there's only 10. I bet you
Oh,
can't, 'cause
okay.
this one-
I was
We
thinking
added-
of a parent community member and a CPAC rep, but.
Okay. Oh, I
If that's not
thought that,
correct, and it might-
I thought the CPAC person was because there's a colon there, I thought
I
that was
see.
the parent community member.
Right.
Oh, I see.
Um,
I don't know about that though, Nancy, because there's a colon after the special ed administrative support staff too, a colon then to the next column.
Well,
not
where
clear.
it says 4 professional staff and there's a colon, the numbers that are under there are included in that 4. It
I
says
agree
4
with you.
professional staff, then 1 elementary, it's not 4
So then
and.
there's 9.
There's 10 on here.
10.
I see, okay, got it.
So I would think more than one parent.
You would think, yes?
More than one
Yes,
parent
that
of
would
some
be, I would think either a school committee member or an additional
Additional
parent.
CPAC?
Right,
Or any
either,
parent?
it could be 2 CPAC members, or it could be, I would be fine with that as well. Does that, unless,
Are there parents of children with special needs that aren't members of CPAC? Should we make it specific to CPAC? Or should we make it a parent?
so that would,
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, so I
so,
defer to you.
so, I don't actually believe when we say, I mean, CPAC's open for anybody to join, but I think we could, to kind of reach a broader audience, we could get it at 2 ways. Typically, what we've done when we've invited CPAC members on, or any of our selection committees, is we ask the board to select somebody of their own, from their own group. It doesn't have to be a CPAC board member, but it should be somebody CPAC. We could do that, and then in addition to that, we could have the second parent person be sent out through, have a listserv sent to all parents who have children who are on an IEP or
Receiving
504.
services, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you, to do it that
It
way? or-
does, surely, yeah.
And does that, are you guys okay with there not being, if there are 2 parents not having a school committee member on there? Or do you?
I wonder, I mean, I'm fine either which way. I wonder, I know Meg is not here.
Yes.
If she would have liked to be on the,
She could be, though, as the CPAC rep
I
as
see.
well.
Okay.
That
It would
if
be
there
a
are
2 for 1.
It would be, there would still be 2 CPAC members, so I guess we're maybe getting caught up in semantics, because she could represent either the school committee or CPAC.
I see, and in
And the
terms,
5 of you will have a vote at the end. Like, you'll have the
Yes.
final
Yes.
appointment for the position.
and in terms of the schedule, would you have any idea of how often this committee would meet and, how many rounds? Is there any sense of the time commitment required of the community members?
It's
and-
typically not onerous. So of those 11 people that you see on this sheet, they would meet once with Kim Polnick to determine who is asking what questions. And so that meeting is, maybe it takes an hour and a half. And then the day of the interviews, you might sit through 3, 4, 5, 6 interviews, depending upon how many candidates that the 2 of us put forward. So I would say it's probably the better part of a day, and maybe like an hour's sort of training, if you will.
So a question in terms of community participation. I know that the school committee interviews are public, and that what we've done in the past is we have provided feedback forms that people could give feedback that were at the meeting for the school committee to consider. Is that something that will be done?
Sure, that's fine.
Could be done, okay. Makes sense. And do we know how many finalists we're looking for to advance to that? Is there a particular number, or just based on what you see is how many you'll advance forward?
I would say that we're really just looking to see who applies, who's, sort of qualified for the position, right?
And this is strictly Kim Polnick running it. We don't have an outside consulting agency.
That's correct. We do
Okay.
not, we're not using a consulting agency for this position.
So just to kind of go back to what you were saying at the beginning, just to tie it all together. So after the school committee interview, you will make a recommendation to us? Is that-
So what will happen is, I will make a recommendation of, maybe one or two candidates who will come forward and, have that sort of public forum. And then after that, I will make a recommendation to you, but, you always have the power of veto, right?
Sure, but that's, it helps to
So
have
to
your,
speak.
well, it helps to have your
Yes,
recommendation.
and I think that really the experts are the people who are in the schools who sort of know the role, they know the credentials, and they kind of know what they're looking for.
Sorry about that.
All right, then, if there are no other questions, I would seek a motion to approve the recruiting schedule and we'll do two separate motions. The recruiting schedule for the Director of Student Services.
So moved.
A second.
So, motion by Mina, a second by Jen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so that passes. And then a separate motion to,
Maybe, should we just call that, establish a committee for hiring the Director of Student Services as opposed to a subcommittee? It feels like it's odd wording.
sure, so, a motion to approve the formation of a committee. Is that what we want to say? A formation of a committee for the Director of Student Services recruiting.
Maybe for
hire
interviewing the Director of Student Services? I mean, that's what
The
that committee will do,
selection
right?
committee.
They will work as that sort of second line of,
And the selection, I mean, they're
The screening committee.
screening committee. Well, they're not screening the resumes though, are they?
no, they're technically not
So
screening the
that's-
resumes.
Yeah, they're screening it to the next level though.
And they'll come back with a recommendation, correct?
Yes, so,
So
they
maybe
may
this-
find that of 6 people, 3 of them felt, good to them, right? And then those folks would be moved on to the central office level of interviews.
So maybe that's the task of the, I guess we've used the word subcommittee typically because they are under the school committee, right?
It is that is true. It should actually, I think, be a subcommittee because it is something that is under our authority, because we have the authority to create it. But there is something odd about the wording there. I don't know if it's recruiting or.
I can't see it, unfortunately. For interviewing and making a recommendation back to the school committee for the hiring of a director of
They
student
wouldn't be
services.
making the recommendation back to the school committee.
So
They wouldn't?
formation of a
Right.
subcommittee
To identify finalists?
to identify finalists.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so would you like to make that motion?
I would like to make a motion. I would like to make a motion to approve the processes outlined by Kim Polnick to create a committee, oh my gosh, what did I say now? To recommend finalists for the position of Director of Student Services.
I second that.
Motion by Amanda and a second by Mina. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and that so moves, and we will look forward to seeing the candidates when they come forward.
Yes, and we will keep you apprised as we move into the month of April.
Great. And then the next item we have here is the transportation audit presentation, which is
Yeah.
not in the packet. I don't
Yeah,
believe.
so unfortunately, we did not receive the final report in time for the packet, so hopefully in the next meeting.
Okay, so.
Yep, so.
So we're not going to discuss this at all. So
We're
we
not
just,
gonna discuss
we just
this
caught
at all.
up.
Because that would have
Back
been
on
our
schedule.
We will look forward to seeing that because I know that will have some important information. So have you received it?
I have received it, in
Okay.
draft form.
Great, so
but
that we can get it
I did
to.
not want to
No, I just
present
want-
the draft.
I-
I think
that-
it's more important to present the final.
I appreciate that, and I will look forward to seeing it next time. So that brings us into the unified track coaching stipends, and that is you, Dr. Kavanaugh.
Okay. So last year, you approved unified track, and you approved some coaching stipends at that point in time. And what we had suggested then was that we would pilot that program for a couple of years. But what we've learned is that we can really only pilot it for a sort of single year before we have to establish an actual stipend. So the stipend amount that we're looking at right now is $2,000, and so I am looking for you to approve the coaching stipend for the unified track coaches.
I will make a motion.
Do it.
I'll make a motion to approve the stipend for unified track coaches.
Second. Motion by Amanda, a second by Mina. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye, and that so carries, and that moves us into the FY20 budget.
So that has your name. Do you want me
Oh,
to
yes, sorry.
just jump in?
Oh, no, I thought, yes, that would be fine. I thought that was yours, sorry.
Nope, and that's fine. So, as you know, we continue to meet, obviously, with the town manager and the finance group, if you will. So we have been asked or tasked to continue to reduce the budget for FY20. And really, it's around a strategy, I believe, and I'm not going to, make full assumptions, but I believe it is still an effort by the Board of Selectmen to reduce the tax impact. So they are trying to do different things to do what they can to try to bring down the budget, if you will. So in working collaboratively with the town manager, we've identified 2 areas in the operating budget. $10,000 for the marathon gas line item and $5,000 for the building and grounds summer help that we feel we could reduce the FY20 budget in an effort to try to help them along with their mission. In addition, then we had a long discussion about the capital requests. So as you know, the actual funding of the capital requests is really the purview of the town manager, whether those are going to be pay-as-you-go or put out as debt. He makes those decisions. So in switching some things around, he was actually able to open up a little bit some of the projects for us, but we also look to reduce some of our projects. So you'll see the net effect was a reduction of our full capital ask by $34,800. And you can see the details of each of those, and then the chart in the back. What it does is the big things is reducing that wetlands order of conditions. So again, at this point in time, we do not have an actual estimate of what that will cost. This was an estimate that was given to us by the engineering company when they were doing the turf field. This was a preliminary estimate, so that number did come from something. We're hoping that, the actual will come in less. And if not, we'll have to go to town meeting again in another year and try to complete that task. But it also does allow us to move forward with the kitchen equipment and move forward with the vehicle, which the previous request were eliminated for our capital. So I feel it was a good collaborative effort, I guess, if you will, to work with the town, still continue to move forward some of the capital projects that we need, and also some areas within the operating budget where I feel we could make some movement.
So you were
So
looking for,
the numbers came down from Marathon because of more realistic utilities, is that correct?
Well, so the gas, we increased significantly, because, again, the argument has been, we don't know where that's going to come in. And as you saw from the budget transfers, we are going over budget. But in projecting out, I think we'll still come in below what we budgeted for 20. So it's still a difficult year to gauge, because you have, even though we'll have more history, some things are still kind of running on a commissioning schedule, if you will. So you know, you're still having utilities that are doing this as opposed to really normalizing. Probably will take a good 2 years to get a real normalizing schedule. So I do feel there's room to bring that down a little.
Okay.
Mr. Othmick, I actually read through the memo. That was very well written. One request that I have put forth in the past also is some description on all those items. It simply gives the highlight. It doesn't give any detail in there. So if we just say capacity study and $50,000, or if we say, you know, bus parking lot, say 200,000 or 300,000, I'm speaking the numbers off the top of my head. I think it helps. I know that we talk about this, but to have it right on the document, I think it's very helpful for the school committee as well as for the community when we are asking for something that's adding up to $1.3 million. I'm rounding that up. I think it's helpful if we can add some level of detail.
So if you recall in that school committee questions document, I had put in the detail of every capital item. So it is in that document that is shared with the committee.
It's in a document?
Yes.
I think even more in the packet so that the community sees it, not like a working document for us, but more baked into the process, just so that as people are going through this, if they're following along at home, they real time can have their memory jogged. It's just hard when they're not working with it from day to day.
And I understand some of it is, you know, this is just a projection. You don't have everything nailed down in terms of details, but to just have some high level, I think that'd be helpful. And I have to look back at which document are we talking about?
This is the one here, all the questions that are, it's long, but it's, yeah.
Yeah, I have a question about the questions document, but we'll get through that.
How pressing is the wetlands order of condition? Is this the one that we inherited that had been sort of overlooked?
That's
Okay,
correct.
so because we made a significant cut, as you mentioned, so if for some reason 40,000 is not sufficient and we can't do it this year, it's not urgent.
Well, it's been about 20 years.
It's been,
Okay.
okay,
The date on it, yeah.
just want to be clear,
Yeah, I mean, it is something that, you know, from our perspective, we would like cleaned up.
Correct.
And, you know, I believe from the Conservation Commission's perspective, they would like cleaned up. So it is something that we don't want to continue to perpetuate.
Right.
It has been a problem that we inherited, you're correct.
Yeah.
Somebody's gotta shut the door and get it done.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that we still can.
Okay, it might be realistic even at that lower number.
You know,
Yeah, okay.
I don't know. You know, the replication was reduced from a 2-to-1 to a 1.5-to-1.
Okay.
You know, so that, you know, how much effect will that have on the number? The actual location, which we've identified as the potential of where it will be, will have effect on the number because of access.
Okay.
You know, the harder it is to access, obviously, the number goes up. So all these factors play into what that number finally will be.
Okay.
But they're doing that study currently.
Okay.
I don't know that we'll have a good number for town meeting, but, you know, we'll have to continue to march forward and, like I said, just shut the door and get this done.
Okay, sounds good.
With regard to the questions document, so you're talking about that common shared drive where we are posting the questions. I actually want to bring back that process once and make sure that, you know, many times by the questions that one asks that can, you know, kind of show, I want to just make sure that there's no violation in terms of OML or what have you with regard to the process. And, you know, when you ask a question that can imply where you're leaning towards. So I just want to be on the clear with regard to that process.
Well, and that's why it's always, whenever it's shared, it is not for deliberation. It's really to make sure that if one member is asking a question of us for further clarification, it's information that the whole committee deserves to have, so that everybody has that same knowledge base.
Sure.
But again, it is not for deliberation.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, you know, maybe we bring it back just for all of us to review, and perhaps you have thought through all of this and that there are no concerns there. Thank you.
So you need a motion to approve this
That's
change in the capital, and I'm not good with looking at visual math and.
So the operating budget for the motion, the new budget would be 48,044,950. And that represents a 6.63% increase. We were at 6.67.
And has this been reviewed with the town manager closely?
Yes, that's what,
Okay, perfect.
we did,
That's
we
where
did
this
this
came from.
together with the town manager. And then the capital number would be what you can see, you can make the motion based on the chart that's part of the memo.
Okay, so I would like to entertain to see if there's a motion to approve the revised operating and capital budgets as outlined by Ms. Rothermick.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mina and a second by Jen. All those in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for both for really, and all of your team for sharpening your pencils in a way that's whittling it down to meet the need for the town.
It's a lot of negotiation there.
I know, I have seen that, and I know it's not easy when we've already cut so much out of our budget to find places where you can pull more. So, appreciate that. All right, I think I have to scroll back up. That brings us to items by consensus. Is that?
So, public comment.
Oh, yes, but I think we're good with public comment.
I do. I think we can.
In that case, then we are ready for items by, do you have something you want to say?
Yes, so in the items by consensus, this is just, just me being picky a little bit there. There was one item that,
Like to pull out?
no, one of the meeting minutes said, Miss Kavanaugh, I think it's Dr. Kavanaugh who presented it. I think it was about the budget somewhere.
Which
One of the
I
meeting-
never get credit for the big stuff.
Sorry. That's a good catch.
It
Which
looks
one
like
is
it
that?
was
you
January
know,
10th.
Right, so
I'm
that should
just
be,
trying
that
to
should be,
remember.
no, it should be corrected to be
January
reflected appropriately, because
Which one is it?
January
carries
10th,
a
I
little
think,
bit more
January
credibility
10th.
if it's Dr. Kavanaugh that
sort
did
of
it.
midway down.
All right, let me get.
Do you know which one it was?
No, I don't have my.
January
My
10th,
big
she
girl
said.
machine
Amanda
died on
says,
me.
is this the January 10th meeting?
Which did you, Jen, did you say which
I
one?
think it's January 10th, sort of midway down. It
But
says
that-
Dr.
was a lot
Kavanaugh,
in-
but then it says Ms. Kavanaugh explained.
I mean, it does.
Maybe it is supposed to be Ms. Kavanaugh. Maybe it was Nancy.
Maybe I had a smart moment.
Oh, please.
I actually think that one was supposed to be Ms. Kavanaugh.
I have to look to see where it is, because I don't know.
Budget one, I am pretty certain it was Dr. Kavanaugh who presented it.
Maybe we're not looking at the right one then. So Dr. Kavanaugh, public comment.
How about this?
Well, we have to check if you want to check.
I am so
It should
sorry
be
about
accurate.
this.
No, this should be accurate. This is,
Yes, no, we should check.
in months to come, or years to come, people may want to question what we did. And if
So
they
the
think I said
10th
something I didn't. All right, Doctor.
All right, so I can check if you want to pull that one off. I'll just make sure that it.
All right, so
the
we'll
person who
hold
said
that
it
one
is
for the
correct.
next.
I'm just
Hold
checking
that one.
to see if this
That's
is the
right.
right
Is
one.
this where you're talking about right here?
Yes, yes.
And
No,
is
no,
that-
no, I actually did make that comment because it was changing, it was a change from how it was in the calendar, that the way it was in the calendar, the initial calendar, it looked like we were going to vote the budget immediately following the public hearing, was
We'll
what
go for
the
that.
difference was.
We'll go for that.
So I do actually think that's accurate.
All right, then. I'm sorry.
No, it's better to check and to know
And
that we're
it proves the rest
accurate.
of
That's
I totally, I
the story
totally
for the
did.
day. And, by the way, nice job, because that's a lot of minutes to.
Nice job to Susan McClure. I mean, please.
She's phenomenal.
She is unbelievably good.
Yes. So, if there are no other items to be looked at differently here, I would seek a motion to approve the items by consensus.
So moved. We'll have to turn it
Second.
back.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
All right. And it is, carries, and I would now, and we are only 4 minutes behind, I just want to highlight that.
We can do transportation.
I know. I would seek a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
So, motion by Mina and a second by Amanda. All those in favor?
Yes.
And we are adjourned at 9:25, and our next meeting will take place here in the high school library on April 4th, 2019 at 7 p.m. And thank you all, and have a good night.